Hello, everybody, and welcome to another SIG Windows meetup. Thank you all for attending. We actually have a pretty good attendance today, so lots of folks are here. Just a couple of bit of news. So I just started at VMware. So, you guys have noticed Apprenda is no longer a company. So I'm now with VMware, and one of the things that I'll be overseeing is also the Windows Server containers on Pivotal and PKS. So my goal is to start introducing a couple more open source developers from VMware and Pivotal into the project that can help us go to GA, since our goal is to GA in pretty much a month from now. Me and Patrick are going to talk about resources offline as towards the tail end of this week, and maybe update you guys at the next meetup. That's it from me. Now I have resources again from my own company, so it'll be good to have us on this progress, and I'm excited.
Yeah, excellent. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, the charter process?
Yes, absolutely. I guess someone complained that it was merged automatically after I approved it. I don't know what happened with that. But essentially, there's a SIG conformance that basically was formed to kind of start helping define what the goals and charter are for each one of the different SIGs that are being part of Kubernetes. And our charter is kind of very cut and dry. Our goal is to make sure that we can support containers on the Windows ecosystem. We'll make sure that all the new features and functionalities and bells and whistles that are added on Kubernetes either work on Windows or we call it out when they don't work, and essentially make sure that we test and we take the conformance tests and everything else that are happening around the test suites for Kubernetes and make them work for Windows within our platform in a hybrid environment of Windows and Linux. So given that charter, that's kind of our guiding principle as well, going to GA with 1.13.
Okay.
Anything else to add, Patrick?
Yeah. So a couple things. So basically, the charter that's on there basically is saying, none of the governance is deviating from the defaults for the community, and then it just calls out the 2 bullet points of Windows specific code in all parts of the database code base as being the responsibility, as well as testing of Windows-specific features and clusters. So I think it's pretty clear to me. I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to get other feedback, and if we needed to do any other process on the email list or anything like that.
So Patrick posted the link for the pull request on the chat. So if anybody has any feedback, please let us know. I know it merged, and that's what I said earlier. So once I approved it, it got merged.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but if we do want to make a change, we definitely it's within our power to do so. So
yeah.
If you guys have something that you want to add in there, let us know.
Okay. All right. So I've got links in there. I guess sort of the one question I want to be thinking about is, I know that the SIG was initially formed to handle the Windows specific stuff, but we were basically formed out of SIG node. And I don't know if this is something that would go into the charter or if this is a separate discussion, but is there some point at which we should consider just becoming part of SIG node again? Is that something that you've given any thought to?
I'll tell you my personal opinion. I think the SIG nodes meetings are fairly polluted with a lot of very specific things that SIG node cares about, and they basically take 100% of their time. So I think that would be a fly on the wall if we were part of those meetings, and maybe we would or not be able to get enough face time to raise our agenda and talk about our things. So I think that given that we have our own charter and maybe our own set of responsibilities, it makes sense for us to still stay out of SIG node. We also span, between SIG node, SIG network, SIG cluster ops. We have a lot of other SIGs that we span responsibility on and make sure we need to interface with. that it might make sense to keep our own agenda. But
Okay.
I'm open if everybody wants to move to SIG node, you can do that. It's just I feel like we have a different agenda, different objectives within that SIG.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't there when SIG Windows initially started, so I didn't know if there was like, a set goal and then merge, or, I mean, I think that at least for the next 6 months to at least year, we have enough Windows features that people are looking for that aren't there in Linux that we should be focusing on. Things like, getting to group managed service accounts and other, things for more Windows compatibility. So we definitely don't have any shortage of work on our plate. I was just curious if that was something that we needed to wrap up in there, or if we run to a point where we run out of things that are different, then we discuss it then. So, okay. Anybody else have questions on the charter stuff? Okay. So the next thing I had on the list was I just added a link to a bunch of PRs, but basically I'm continuing to go from meeting to meeting to help push and make sure that the PRs that we need to achieve on 13 get merged. The primary one I'm worried about right now is the DNS capability one that PengFei opened over 2 months ago. And so like I pinged Dawn over in SIG-Node again on this to say, hey, can you help us, find a reviewer for this because it's a change in the kubelet. So I'm hoping that we can get some traction there. And then there's a list of test changes. So I'm just going to keep kind of, pinging people in SIG testing and the other SIGs so that we can get those merged, because, it's if we've got test bugs that could, block our clean test pass. So if anyone's got any other issues that need to be added to this list, please let me know. And then I just realized I forgot to put the master list on there. So if anyone's got other issues on there that they need, just let me know, because I'm going to keep working on those. And I've got a Jenkins server that's basically pulling all those pull requests into one place and building binaries. And so I should have that working in the next couple of days. And so I'll share that on the Slack channel as well. So that can save people the trouble of manually doing the cherry pick and build steps if you want to test it for your own clusters. So beyond those PRs, the next big push that we need to start working on is getting the doc set updated with all the use cases we need and things like that. So I think that as there's new people coming onto the project, that would be a great place for them to help sort of look at what's there and say, does this make sense? Because, for those of us that have been looking at this for a long time, there's probably steps that I just do automatically and without even thinking about it. So getting fresh eyes on that would be helpful. So that's the only stuff I had for today. Did you want to talk about your item, Peter?
Yes, so I just pasted in a link to a README that I put together in a fork of the Kubernetes repository for bringing up a hybrid cluster on GCE. So anyone who's out there running on Google, if you have a Google Cloud project, then you should be able to follow these steps and bring up a cluster just by running a few commands. It's based on the kube up script, which is under the cluster subdirectory in the Kubernetes repository. So we are using this as the basis for some automated testing now on GCE, which Yuju and I are working on presently. I have the tests running with the exclusion list that Adelina published, and they take about 3 hours right now. I haven't really looked at what's passing and failing yet, but we're making progress here, and we'll have more to share on actual test results soon.
Okay. And so the cube up script, that is something that's specific to GCE, like it uses your command line tools?
There's a few different approaches that you can use with KubeUp. One of them is specific to GCE. There's some other subdirectories under there. I haven't explored them. They might work or have worked at some point in time with other cloud providers. I'm not totally sure.
Okay. So is this a script that you're planning to maintain long-term, or is this something that would eventually be folded into someplace like KubeADM or?
We haven't figured that out or decided yet. This was kind of the shortest path to getting something going
cool.
automatically on GCE. So
cool. I'm glad to see that working.
Yeah, thank you for putting that together.
So when it comes to the docs for version 1.13, is it safe to say that we could just recommend using this if you want to use GCE, and then we'll link out to the ACS engine docs for Azure, and then if we have somebody contributing stuff for AWS, then that sort of makes sense?
Yeah, something like that would probably make sense. I still, of course, there's still some cleanup to do, and we'll potentially try to push this into the upstream repository instead of my fork. But yeah, we can talk about that when the time comes to put this down.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the right approach, and maybe we'll put them somewhat a little bit more official at that time.
Yeah. So we could probably just basically keep a list of supported deployment or it'd be like supported deployment tools or distributions or something like that. And then once we've got a preview from Docker, we can put that on the list. Same with OpenShift. So, okay. Cool. I'll have to take a closer look at how that script works. Let's see. Did you have any topics you wanted to go over, Adelina?
Yeah. So basically, the main discussion going from the discussion last week is what approach we're going to take to the conformance test. So just a quick recap, and correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, we cannot exclude the conformance test if we want to go to GA and basically say that this Windows is conformant according to Kubernetes, the Kubernetes community. Now, this is a political issue more than a because they do understand that some features do not work on Windows and can never work, but we need to pass all the tests basically. So the approach that was discussed last week was running the tests on a hybrid cluster. So basically forcing the tests to run on Windows, and if for some reason they cannot run on Windows, they will be run on the Linux node in that hybrid cluster. Now, for this problem of the test, we originally thought of just skipping all the conformance tests we didn't want. We even had a PR for that, but as we said, as I said, that is not an option. So what we did is make a PR to show them that how we would approach the running of the tests in a hybrid cluster. So basically, we have a hybrid flag into the test that marks the clusters as hybrid. And if that is set, we basically add the node selectors to the pod spec of each test. Now, the problem with this approach, obviously, is that the way the tests are written, basically there's no uniform way in which the pod spec is defined. For some tests, it's directly into the test. For some tests, there's a helper method, helper function, and so on and so forth. So there's no, let's say, framework function that gives you a pod spec based on some parameters. So thus, we have to go with each test hand by hand. Now, in that, if you look at that PR, we choose not to change all the tests. So that PR is just a work in progress. It's marked as a work in progress because we want to discuss the exact mechanism. If the testing, the folks from testing and SIG architecture are okay with the mechanism, we'll go forward and change all the tests. But there's no point in changing 200 plus tests if this approach is not okay. The changes are not major, so as I said, it's just adding a node selector. It's just a lot to do. So we had that PR, so it's very important to push that discussion as fast as possible. So we will be able to run hybrid clusters. Now, the problem of the images inside these hybrid clusters, because obviously you may recall we had a PR some time ago regarding that provided the ability to specify custom images for or a custom registry at the outside of the Google Container Registry that they use by default. One of the problems is that that registry contained only Windows images, obviously. What we did is use manifest list and converted all the images to be a manifest list. So now, basically, under the same image name, we'll have both the Linux and the Windows variant of the same image. And thus we can run on hybrid clusters. Because obviously a prerequisite of this model is that both Linux and Windows tests run at the same time within a test run. So as I said, we changed all the images. If you are interested in using them, they are under this repository. Just a second to paste it. Now, though my internet is slow, so yeah, I apparently. That's the Docker Hub organization under which they are. So all the images there are manifest lists. If you pull one of them and look into them, you're going to see that they're a manifest list, not just an image. One of the issues that we might encounter here is that once you create a manifest list, you cannot reference images from different repositories, so registries. Sorry. So basically, we can have the images in Google Container Registry and the Windows images in Docker Hub. So basically, we had to mirror all the Google Container Registry official test images into Docker Hub. So if you actually look in Docker Hub under that repo, under that organization, you're going to see that the images are, let's say, mount test and mount test dash AMD64. The AMD64 is the Linux one, but it is included inside the mount test one that is a manifest list. So that's just a little bit of under the hood stuff. Now, if you're interested to test on hybrid cluster with these know that you have to use this repository. I probably have to update some docs to mention this as well.
Okay. So if we were to move these images into the Kubernetes tree, so that way they could be built for Linux and Windows as part of the Bazel jobs, do you think that would fix it to where we could push them all into the same registry? Because I know that's done for each Kubernetes build today, right?
Yeah. So no. The images are not built at each build. These images are rarely built. I mean, they're just built once they change something, but that versions or whatever.
Okay.
I think I need to double check, but they have automation in place. I think to check for changes in the specific image folder. I need to double check this. I don't remember for the last time I looked, but I think there are two layers to this thing. So building our images in Kubernetes, that will be great and awesome, because that way we will just bake them into their manifest list, because their images upstream our manifest list as well. And the problem, to be frank, is I don't think that this is feasible for this time frame. Because
probably not for 13, right?
Yeah, because they will need a Windows host to build them, first of all. And then some changes to build the Windows version of the Go binaries and so on and so forth. So it's not an easy task. Plus that the way they build the images, I mean, I haven't investigated this, but I don't think that they have some tool that we can use and just point them. So say we provide a Windows machine where these would be built. So I don't think it's realistic for this this time frame. What I do want to test out is, so the error I've been having when I try to make manifest lists from images into different in Google Container Registry and Docker Hub was that obviously they cannot be different. But I'm curious if the repository is their problem or exactly the registry. So I'll push some images in the Google Container Registry I have on my account and try to see there. Maybe that will work. So we'll still use a different registry, not the upstream one, but we don't have to mirror theirs. That will be the advantage this provides.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, be sure to let us know how that goes. And I think that long term, you're getting the things building or something that we would need to take up with SIG, SIG testing, but that would probably be over the next couple of releases. I think the first thing that's most important is that since there are some unit tests that are run before the end-to-end tests are run, I think that would be a higher priority to get that going first. And then and that sort of requires getting a Windows build machine there. So I think this right scope could be, run the unit tests on things like the kubelet and kube proxy, and then also see about building the Windows specific images needed for EDE. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start investigating that, and then find out what the scope is and see when we need to get that done. So, all right. Well, thanks for the clarifications there. Did anybody have other topics for today? Or did you have anything else, Adelina?
No. I was thinking if anything comes to mind, but no. Regarding the changes in the test with the hybrid cluster, but no. The only important thing here is to push this forward.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Well, I'll make sure those are on the SIG testing and SIG architecture agenda so we can keep that discussion moving forward. So, cool. All right, did you have anything else, Michael or Peter?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, thanks everyone. Have a great day. I'm going to head over to the SIG node meeting.
Thanks.